a lot of BMW friends of mine that are like, E46 or E36 or you're not doing right. And I'm like, okay, guys, there's pros and cons here. Like, you can clip this. I will say this outright. Do not buy an Injuku cage.
Drip and Drift.
Welcome back to the Drip and Drift podcast. My name is Nick, aka Drip and Drift. Today, got the homie Dylan, aka Skid Valve, aka Ranger Driftworks.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for coming, bro.
I'm excited. I've never done a podcast before, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, man, the majority of my guests have never done podcasts before, so...
But you got some cool people on here, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Well,
so like,
you.
can't even like. Every once in a while I'll pull it up and like I'll see because I'm subscribed and I'll see it pop in. I'm like, oh shit, you interviewed him. Oh, okay. This will be a fun one.
Yeah, dude. Just trying to really like get the spirit of Florida drifting. Like talk to as many drivers, people that go to events.
You're getting a lot of the people that like me as somebody that goes watch a Pro-Am.
Yeah.
Like a lot of drivers like I want to know more about that guy. They don't have an Instagram. I've never heard of these people before, but like that's a cool car. Like,
yeah, and just like the story upbeat. Like I love hearing people's stories and like,
dude, the stories in the pits. So I'll help pit for Andrew sometimes, Grindle.
Yeah, and
like I'll not every event, but I'll pull up and like help him pit, help Vince and them, his rest of his pit crew, and like you'll hear in the pits and like I was at OSW last year, and like I'm hearing like Kashad's team went through the puddle and fucking hydro locked the motor, and they're thrashing to get it back, and Schulman's over here, and Aceveto's thrashing to put another engine in. It's like, damn, this is. Meanwhile, we're over here, and Grindle's car literally, he had like the way he had the Wise Fab knuckles, but the FDF toe arms, and like they both have anti-squat add-in on it, so like. He was just trying to add like a couple degrees, but they're compounding on each other. So he broke another transmission on the Corvette because like it was anti-squat, and he's got a clip of it. And you literally just watch the wheel go chunk.
Interesting. Wow.
So what was those Corvette transaxles are like glass.
Yeah.
They're not like glass. They're pretty strong, but when you put them into like a pro environment, they kind of they show their weakness. So what was happening is like he'd hit the bank, the car would compress hard into the asphalt. Right, because you're on the bank, so like it's different to a flat surface. When you're on the bank, your tire is being pushed by the full weight of the car. Every action has an equal opposite reaction, right? So the asphalt's pushing back on your car the same amount your car's pushing down on it as it's trying to move it. As your momentum. So like it's trying to push you into the track more than if you're just on top of the asphalt going across the top of it. So what was happening is as he'd compress on the asphalt of the bank of the oval. It would come down hard, and the rear wheels would go in, so it would grip up even harder. And at that point, you're just shocking the driveline so hard that you're snapping stuff.
Is that why when like that recent last OSW event, the RX-8 that hit the wall, like straight, like so many people that straighten out on the bank end up like going into the wall or like something happening? Like,
the best one I can explain is there's a clip of a guy from Flyway, and he's like sideways, doesn't quite have enough wheel speed. And so that's kind of part of it, but part of it's just not having the wheel speed to maintain the bank. So when you're sideways on the bank, your momentum's pushing you down and forward. So you start to lose that, it's going to want to take you up. Yeah. So you get a lot of inexperienced people, and granted, take everything I say with a grain of salt. I'm not that experienced myself. I've driven the bank all twice. So like I got some cool clips, but like I'm speaking purely in theory here. Yeah. You see them at angle on the bank, they start to run out of wheel speed, and instead of like foot braking to try and like keep the car, so like when you foot brake, what's happening is your biases, especially that's why you see like on my car, I've got a brake bias valve. I'm going on a tangent. I'm yapping. But I got a brake bias valve. It shifts the bias forward to the front wheel, so when I foot brake, the front wheels are grabbing more than the rear. It momentarily shifts your weight forward. That makes the rear end even lighter, and that's why you start to gain. But it's only for a moment, so the second it kind of stops, so you can adjust how much the car turns on the left foot brake. So you'll never see, like every once in a while, but you almost never see me when I'm in car like riding the foot brake. Like the only time I'm riding the foot brake is if I'm too fast trying to stay behind somebody. But most of the time I'm just grabbing it and like tapping it and tapping it and tapping it. Like the best way I can describe it is it's a scalpel where the handbrake's an axe. Right? Like, if I'm just trying to add a bunch of angle or remove a bunch of angle or change the pitch of the car a ton, I'm grabbing the handbrake. Yeah. But, like, if I'm deep in the zone, on a door, and I want to make a fine adjustment. I don't need to add much angle, but I just need a little bit. Yeah. That's when you'll tap the foot brake. Yeah. Or, like, if you've got too much angle, that's when you can kind of drag the foot brake a little bit, especially at, like, when you're closer to lock behind somebody, if you drag the foot brake a little bit, it will kind of start to straighten the car out a little bit, just because you're slowing that wheel speed down overall. Back to what goes onto the bank, when you're sideways at angle like that, you can tap the foot brake and grab it and try and basically, especially because you're on the bank, when you pitch down, it really makes the right rear end light, and you lift the rear end up. That's why you see when, like at FD, I can give you the clip. I was actually right at zone 1 where they enter for when the year Denofa won, and you can see the second they get in, their brake lights are on off because they're just on that foot brake trying to keep and maintain angle without sliding back into the wall. So what happens when you get a little bit of an underpowered car that's a little too gripped up? They get sideways, and the car is slowing down, and they're not really grabbing much foot brake to try and keep it in drift, and then it kind of snaps straight. Well, you're on a bank, you're not going straight on a pad, so the direction your car's pointed when you're drifting is correct, but now when you're straightened out, here's the wall coming around the outside, you're going like this, and now you're straight, you're coming straight into the wall.
Yeah.
And then a lot of time at that point, it catches you so off guard, or you run out of skill, or whatever you want to call it. You can get the best of people sometimes. It's nearly gotten the best of me.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't do the oval too much, but
it's so much fun. It's different. I guess I'm one of the weird masochists that actually like to drive the oval.
Like to go through a set of tires and like.
It's so bad. I think I had granted 651s are a trash tire, and I'll stand on that.
Yeah.
They're like, I mean,
I still never use accelerators, but
I think the 5Rs are great for sub 200 horsepower, 50 mile an hour wheel speed, like BMWs. I think they're great for that. They're a great party tire.
They lose grip, like even when they have tread. The
5Rs are like a party tire for like low horsepower cars that last a long time. Like when you're not trying to spend big tire money, but once you kind of break that 300-ish horsepower, you might as well just buy like 265 Kendas. Or the way I see it, at least because I've used the 651, the Zeknovas, and Kendas. The way I kind of rank them is like, granted, there's some better tires, like the Valinos I've heard are amazing. We just can't really get them down here for at a reasonable price.
Yeah.
But like $1 per lap, I have not gotten a better experience than like 265 Kenda 300 treadwheelers. They just last forever. And granted, I'm 430 horsepower Coyote, so I'm spinning them. I think I'm geared for 85 on the pad, which is way too much. But like I have a little bit of extra room because the Coyote revs to 8,000. God, I'm way off the tree here. Sorry, I spiral.
This is how it goes, man. It's all good.
Shoot, now I've lost. We're back. Tires. All right. So the 5Rs are. What were we talking about before the tires? I am.
Grip on the bank and.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now I'm back on track. So I like the 651s. I don't like. I had them on the bank. They wear out. They're really grippy for like the first 2 or 3 laps, and then they just grease ball really hard.
Yeah.
Like they lose all, and they're really sensitive to heat.
And they're pretty much just the same price as Kendas.
They're more expensive. If you know the right places to look for, like a lot of times, like Kevin at Spectral Performance, Crazy Kevin.
Yeah.
He can get you Kendas for cheaper than you're gonna get 5Rs. Right, he's in Orlando. You can pick him up.
Yeah,
pretty much same.
That's the last person I went to.
He keeps them in stock. So like, especially if you're getting like a common size, like a 265, he'll have it same day for you, and he can give you a better price than a 651. I like the Zeknovas. I think they're similarly priced, but they're priced competitively. I feel like they don't quite last longevity wise quite the same. Like I feel like I get. For a full Kenda, I get 3/4 of a Zeknova. Like, the Zeknova lasts 3/4 the amount of time that a Kenda does, which is really reasonable, and the grip's pretty close. I think it falls off a little sooner. I don't know what Kenda does with their formula, but it seems to work for me.
Yeah, same. I like them. I've tried Zeknovas, and I've mainly used Kendas, and I would assess them the same.
Like, Zeknovas and Kendas are my go-to. Like either or. Like if you get if I see a really good deal on some Zeknovas, I go grab them. If I get some good deals on Kendas, I go get them.
Yeah.
I want to try Valino, like the Valino Ibisu tire. I've heard wonders about them, but they're like $180 tire in my size, where the Kenda's like 120, 125, and I'm like, I always do a $1 per lap price breakdown analysis when I'm like to tires, and that's where the Kendos hit the sweet spot because they're pretty close to Zec Novas, but they last a little longer.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, I can get, I'm getting $3-4 a lap with these Kendos, where just because of the price difference, even though I get 15, 20 more laps out of the Valinos, it's you're still at $7-8 a lap, or whatever the number is. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, it still doesn't make sense to me. But if you're in a comp situation where it's like you're not really caring about the price per lap, you're just caring about like most grip, then that's where I can see you going maybe away from a Kenda to like a Valino or an NT555R.
Sure.
But I've heard mixed things about the 555R. Granted, I've never tried them myself, never tried the Valinos myself, so I cannot speak on that in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Well, maybe next time we'll test.
Hopefully, I try to like build a repertoire of like different tires and retest them and just have an idea. Because like Drift Tire Reviews is great as a general source.
Yeah.
You get a lot of people individually in there that have no clue what they're talking about. They're on that Dunning-Kruger curve, right? Where like, here's restart.
You know, yeah.
Here's how much experience you have. Here's your confidence level. 0 experience and 0 knowledge, and you're super thing, and then you hit the trough where you realize, oh, I don't know anything, and then you slowly kind of build back. I had that. In the very beginning, I was confident and cocky like that, thinking I know everything, and then I very quickly learned, boy, I do not know anything.
Yeah, that's happened with most of my hobbies.
The problem is, there's some people I really like that I just don't think will ever get out of the, like, confidence. Like, I'm like, dude, it's okay to admit you don't know. Like, I still don't know plenty.
Yeah.
Like, every day, like...
That's, I think, a self-esteem thing. Like, you gotta have some self-esteem to admit when you're wrong and that you don't know things. And
not having an ego that you can't swallow.
Yeah.
Like I'll be the first person to admit when I don't know. Like,
yeah, same. Like, teach me. That's why, like, this podcast even kind of started. Like, I want to just learn more and talk to people, and yeah.
I've spent countless hours asking stupid suspension questions because I wanna. My main thing is, like, anytime I make an adjustment, I want to know what the adjustment is doing. Like, I don't want to just go, oh, throw toe in, it'll make the car better. I'm like, okay, but why? How does that work? Yeah. So, like, I started out with the solid. So, my first drift car was a 99 Mustang. Got it as my first car. Basic V8 GT manual.
How long ago was that?
I think I started in the After Dark Learner's Day in 2021.
Okay.
In, like, October. Okay. I just finished painting the car. That this guy behind the camera helped me finish painting. That was a big help. And I was just like, I don't like drag racing. I kind of like drifting. I had a couple buddies. I had actually known Andrew Grindle from a couple years before that, probably 4 or 5 years. I had met him. That's where I first met him, was playing paintball. I used to play that somewhat, not professionally, but like I traveled for. I was like D3.
Cool.
So I'd travel for Dye playing in like
very cool
Chicago, Vegas, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Didn't make any money.
No.
There's no money in that, unfortunately.
That's fun.
I just you get kind of tired of the team sport aspect where you're like relying on other people. I just kind of was like, I'm ready for something where like it's all on me. If I make the mistake, cool.
Yeah. If
I don't make the mistake, even better. But like paintball, I got to a point where like I was sitting, even though I'd go out there and like I wasn't one of the star players, so we'd lose 4 points in a row. They'd throw us in, we'd win a couple, then they'd throw the stars back in, we'd lose again. It's like, I'm done. Spending way too much money, not having a good time.
Yeah.
Might as well do something I enjoy. And then so that's when I bought the 99, and it was a slow, just brought it out, and like, okay, the diff doesn't lock up going left, so I need to weld the diff. So walked into it completely green, and then it slowly spiraled, and that's technically the second car I ever did a cage on.
True.
Was like the first car I did a cage on wasn't even my own car. It was actually my buddy Ramon's purple E36. You've met him before, you know him. He got an Injuku cage kit that had already been notched by one of the Injuku guys, but they ended up not using the shell, so they took the cage back out. So I came over and we made it fit in his car, and like it's solid. It's just spec, but God, some of them welds are ugly. Like, I wish I could go back and I'd redo that cage in a heartbeat.
You gotta learn on some of these guys.
Granted, I learned, and then like the next week I did the Rhodes. Rhodes race cars makes these also Injuku style cheap cages, and they're just as bad.
Did you have a welder and stuff already, or like?
So I did. So I had actually bought I'm self-taught in everything. So granted, take everything I say with a grain of salt because I only know what I know, and probably some of it's wrong. I bought a Harbor Freight titanium unlimited 200 because I needed the weld on the 99 car. It was sitting in my driveway. A tree branch fell on it, crushed the roof in.
Oh wow.
And the back part. And Logan actually helped me fix it, the guy behind the camera. And we jacked it up, and I ended up welding a plate in. So that's when I went and bought a welder. And then for work, I had also needed to weld some little things here and there. And it's one of those things where it's like I wanted to learn, because once you learn to weld and weld decently, like it doesn't have to be pretty, but like not dog crap or like chicken crap on a stick.
Yeah.
You don't want it to look like a porcupine with a bunch of wires sticking out. I wanted to learn, so like it opens up a lot of, hey, I need to fix this. Hey, I need to make a bracket. Hey, I want to add something here.
Hey, I need a cage.
That's one of the big things I bought. I was like, well, I want to put a cage in here soon, so let me get a welder. So I bought a titanium unlimited 200 from Harbor Freight. Nowadays, I wouldn't recommend that to starting because you can go on Amazon and get the Yes Welder MiG 205 DS, I think it's called, for like half the price of that welder, and it's literally the same welder. Like, it uses a couple different connectors, but it's just as capable, if not even more, especially on the TIG side, because it does have a TIG. It's a multi-process, so it can do multiple different things. The biggest thing that I see people do with welding when they first start out is they use flux core. They use flux core wire and go, I'll buy a gas bottle later. I'm like, don't. Flux core, well, like, you can make it look all right if you know what you're doing, but it's so hard. There's so much smoke. It's so hard to see. The welds are like, it just sucks to weld flux core. Like, get yourself a cheap bottle, go on Facebook Marketplace, find a weld, like an 80 cubic foot bottle that's not company, it's not a rental tank, it's somebody owns it, and buy that, and then you can just take it into your local welding shop. I use like Empire Cylinder in Daytona. Don't use air gas because they overcharge on everything. And just get like C25 for steel, which is 75% argon, 25% CO2. And then it's a night and day difference. You get such a cleaner burn, a cleaner weld, cleaner arc. It doesn't spatter as much. You can really see what you're doing. You can get a feel for the size of the pool. And really, you'll go, maybe like, a lot of the time you get people that are like, I'm just bad at welding. I'm like, nah, bro, you just don't got set up right. Yeah. Like, you just need to get your settings dialed in. And that's something I've learned more and more as I've done more and more cage kits, is a lot of just like, hey, tweak the settings more. Like, so when I can do the base plates, right? So the base plates are these eighth inch thick steel plates that weld into the chassis as your landing pad. Well, the chassis is not 1/8 inch thick. That's like 1/16 or maybe a little thicker. Sheet metal, right? So if you try to weld that 1/8 inch plate with your 1/8 inch settings, you're just going to blow right through the sheet metal when you get to it, right? So what I do is I find the 16th inch and I find the 1/8 inch and I kind of find an in between. And I start there, and then I'll back the heat off a little bit, which is the voltage, and up the wire speed a little bit. So like, I still get a solid fusion. Like, you cut it, if you X-ray it, it's still good, but it's not so hot that like you're overheating the metal too quickly and you're just gonna blow it through it. And then you can kind of work yourself in sections and kind of go and get the base plate in. Once the base plate's in, now you're good to go, because the base plate's spreading that out, so it doesn't matter that those welds are only 16th inch, because together as one, they're a lot stronger. Now, when you're getting the 1/8 inch pipe on the 1/8 inch pad, you can turn that sucker right back up and get her nice and hot and let it eat.
Yeah. But yeah, that all takes trial and error. I'm guessing like you burn some holes through.
It's a lot of like, okay, this sucks. I'm doing this, and I literally was like, on my car, I was like, I keep blowing through this, driving me up a wall. Let me turn it down some. Yeah. And I have no clue what these settings do, so I'm just turning knobs and dials and asking buddies like, hey, what do you know? Blah blah blah. You have any recommendations? And just a lot of trial and it's not even that much trial and error. Once you kind of got a feel for it, you're like, okay, this is a little hot, let me turn it down a little bit, or this is a little cool. And the other thing, you can control the heat by how fast you go. So let's say you're a little hot. If you go slow, you're going to blow through, but if you're still a little hot, but you go quickly, there's not as much time for the heat to disperse into the metal. So you don't blow through as quickly on the thin stuff. Interesting. The other thing with the thin stuff you got to be careful about is prepping. And aluminum's big about this, but like even doing cages, seam sealer will make or break you. Like, if you got to a lot of time you got to put a box right where there's a seam sealer. And if you don't get rid of that seam sealer, you're never going to get a good weld there. Because that seam sealer is it's not conducive. You literally hit it and it's like you hit popcorn. It's just all porous. You didn't get any weld there. It's bad. Yeah. You got to really clean that out. I use an angle die grinder if you buy like the bulk pack of wire wheels off Harbor Freight, they actually fit in the angle die grinder. Works amazing for that stuff. Get it all out, clean it out, make sure you've got bare, clean metal. and that will worlds of a difference. Gas, worlds of a difference. Put that all together, you actually get some decent welds. You're like, okay, maybe I'm not too bad. Yeah. You can kind of work on technique, and then once you're ready to step up, you can step up to the TIG, which is what I'm doing now. That's a whole nother ball game, because you're now, instead of it being metal inert gas where your filler is your electrode, right, you've got a tungsten rod that's getting real hot, and you're dipping in and you're making it nice. And that one's a true time on task to get decent at it. Is you just got to spend time and time. And I'm not that good at it yet. I ain't gonna bullshit you, or I don't. I try not to curse because I know YouTube's weird about that.
It's okay. We're far enough in.
Yeah, the 5 seconds or whatever it is.
I don't know.
I love watching the algorithm and just seeing how it cycles.
Yeah.
But so really, for starting, Amazon MiG 205DS. Yeah. It's like $400. You'll never really need anything more than that if you're just a garage guy. True. And just practice. Yeah. And then learning your metals, and then like if you're putting a cage in, go read the rule book. Like if you plan on going to do something, read the rule book. There's things that you'll go, oh, I didn't know that, or oh, I'm glad I didn't do that. Right. Like you'll get people like, oh, I don't want to put this bar here. I'm like, oh, there's a reason they do it. Like I was telling you off camera, I didn't put it like for reference. I just put a cage in your car, a cage kit. So you're caged now. Yes. I couldn't put the dash bar in, like the cage dash bar that comes with it. That's just a straight bar that goes between the two A-pillar down bars to those points. I couldn't put it in because you have HVAC still and AC and your stock core support for the dash. And
if I can, I'd like to keep the AC.
Right, which in Florida, and you're not competing in Pro-Am with it or anything crazy like that. Or even if you are, it's not that big. You want the AC. Yeah. I regret taking it out of my race car. That's I'm gonna put a cool suit in that because it's bad. I've melted shoes on the floor before, just from it getting hot. But lost train of thought. Certain bar, yes. Sorry, I'm like squirrel. The dash bar for the cage isn't actually required by FD. It's optional. I tell people that and they go, what? If you go through the rule books and if you're ever curious what the FD spec rules are, you literally just type in Formula Drift rulebook. They got your sporting codes. It's all PDF. They update it every year. Pictures for everything you need pictures for. And it'll walk you through everything you need to be legal about moving suspension points, not moving suspension points, what's legal in cars, exceptions. They have a whole cage section. And like one of the things they'll read is like, dash bars are optional. So like, as I was telling you, your main hoop has diagonal bars. Like, so they require, the main hoop is the one right behind you that your harness attaches to. That goes down the B-pillar. So it goes up and over. And then they require a full solid bar with no brakes to go from the top corner here to the bottom corner there, with the top corner being above the driver. That's so if the car flips, you have that's triangulated with that corner of that hoop now to basically act as a pyramid like a true roll bar. And that car is infinitely harder to crush that direction now. Yeah. They don't require anything laterally, though, between the A-pillar bars, which is weird because you have the harness bars in between and that bar, and your rear down bars have crossbars in it, but I believe that's also... I'll have to double check on that. I believe you have to do one or both or not at all. I think you might be able to get away with that without having any crossbars in your down bars. I don't remember, so don't quote me on that. It's been a while since I read that section. Because most of the time people put a crossbar back there anyways, which is what I recommend just because safety. Yeah. But they don't require a dash bar at all, but they do require extrusion bars. And they require every surface to be fully welded around. That's why you have to drop the cage and get around the top and so on and so forth. And it's just, there's a lot of little things. And like, I'm not going to name names, but like I know people that have rolled up the comps thinking they bought a car with a cage and went, yeah, it's good to go. Yeah. And then they roll up and next thing you know, they're cutting bash bars because they need to weld intrusion bars into the car because they don't have intrusion bars. And those intrusion bars are like the one thing that like drag cars don't have that drift cars do. And because we do so much side-to-side contact, they want, if like, a bash bar gets ripped open and now you're going in there, or like you come in real hot with a wheel, your feet are now protected as well in the cage. And there's a pic out there of like a car where, I forget, it might have been like E-Town or a track or Summit Point or a track like that where you got real long straights. It's an S14, and I guess they were doing a changeover and a person sent a car when they weren't supposed to. And they T-boned at like 80. And the dude's cage probably wasn't done the best, but also it's a really hard impact. Like FD cars don't even hit each other going that fast. Like the worst FD accidents you can think of most of the time aren't that fast. And like that cage, like he had to go to the hospital, crushed pelvis, so on and so forth. But like you can see the door bar. Like if it wasn't for the cage, he'd be dead.
Yeah.
Like 100%. Like, and I can attest to that. Like cages make a difference. I'm big safety now. There's a clip out there I've been on everywhere of me wrecking the orange car. You know, that was me in the midst of coming down on the Dunning-Kruger curve thinking I know what I'm doing when I don't. And I just got a little too giddy. And it was started out as a 4-car train. And when I was talking about the car earlier, what I was saying is you can see the door bars crush in and the intrusion bars don't because of just the way it's triangulated.
Yeah.
But back to what I just wanted to finish that thought before I moved on to the next thing because otherwise I'll never come back to it. I wrecked my car. It was started out as a 4-car train. I was the 4th car. The 3rd car had an issue on initiation, and so I had to stop and kind of go around him. So in my head, I'm like, oh, I'll never catch up to him. I can go full out. And I was feeling myself. I had a new angle kit on it because the old angle kit sucked. And we're ripping and we're rolling. And next thing I know, I look up. They're exiting the Manji. I'm entering it. So I see them. I'm like, okay, I'm good. So I look off. And one thing I don't do as much anymore, what I did a lot then, was like, I still pick points on the track as like you're racing. You pick markers on the track to reference your car against to know where you're at, where you need to be. But like now I try to do it while keeping an eye on the cars in front of me. Before I would like fully look off for a split second. And right as I started to look away, the car in front of my buddy Nathaniel Jordan, white car, who had just wrecked at my private day 3 days earlier in a freak accident where somebody had a tire delam in front of a train and just got pounded. He spent all this time and effort getting this car back. The car in front of him spun, and it's like the easiest corner on the track. Sometimes it gets the best of us. Sometimes we make a stupid mistake. But he spun coming out of the right-hander, where you straighten back off. It's the old spring wave. Right-hander straight off. He just spun right there, lost it, and the way it was, and the camera angle does this zero justice. You think I could see him for miles, and I could have easily avoided it. I look off to see my edge of the track, and I put the tire on the edge of the track, and I look back, and from my angle, because the video shows it from like the entry, the current entry, and this is on the opposite corner.
Right.
But from my angle, I look up, I see Jordan's white car, I see smoke, and then I see the car in front of him start to spin from in front of him, because what he tried to do, when he realized he was losing it, he did the right thing. He tried to spin out of the way. Right, which is the correct thing to do. If you can either go off track or spin out of the way, try it because it's better than getting run over.
Yeah.
So he did the right thing. He started to spin out of the way, but by that time, it had taken me a couple seconds to realize, oh, he's spinning. Oh, they're stopping. Oh, I need to stop. And so I grabbed the foot brake for a second, and then I realized, oh, I'm not going to stop in time. Like I'm going too fast. I'm way too hot here. I should have been paying closer attention to those cars that I thought I wasn't going to catch up to. And granted, this is like 2-3 years ago now, so I've learned my lesson and I've become a better driver. But I see that, and I was going to pancake Jordan in the white car. Like, I was going to full-on T-bone him. Like, I was like, I can't hit Jordan's car. He just fixed this. Like, I can't let this happen. So I was like, well, maybe I can get in front of him. So I grabbed the foot brake for like a 1/10 of a second, then got off and put my foot through the floorboard, trying to get around him. And instead of coming into him sideways like I thought I managed to get in front of him, which I didn't think I was going to be able to do. But unfortunately, I think his name's Hoisway. Really nice guy.
The one in front of him.
Yeah, the one in front of him. That happens to the best of us, man. Dude, I've made stupid mistakes too. I know ill will against him. I feel really bad about the whole thing that happened. He did the right thing. He tried to spin out of the way. And unfortunately, when he spins out of the way, it's right into where I tried to get around Jordan. And thankfully, the way it worked out is because his car wasn't caged, because they don't require cages to tandem at OSW, which I'm all right with, but I think it shouldn't be more than like a 2-car tandem, because when you get the differences in speed, that's when you get problems. Thankfully, I was caged, and I was the one who got T-boned. This was my car. This was him. I'm the one who got T-boned by him instead of it being the other way around, because it bent my cage. Like, doors fully pushed in, right where the door bar comes into the main hoop, it kinked the main hoop in. The door bar itself was bent, like it was a little convex, and now it's concave. Like it fully bent things. Like if it wasn't for the cage, I definitely would have been in the hospital. Like it would have crushed the seat just like that 240 I was telling you about earlier. But thankfully the speeds here weren't as high as there. So like the cage could soak it up and kind of stop it. Whereas his situation, they're closing at like 80 mile an hour.
Yeah.
It could only soak up so much. Yeah. But like if it was the other way around, I'd be scared that like I would be distraught if I had hurt him.
Yeah, yeah, dude. That's
so thankfully. I mean, it's unfortunate because like I think I ended up pushing the front end of his car 12 inches over.
Oh wow!
That shell was totaled. Yeah. Thankfully, there's another cool guy there it was the NMRA before NMRA shut down. There's another cool guy's like, hey, I have a shell that I was gonna get rid of here. You can have this. Huh?
Oh wow!
So I was happy for him. If not, I was gonna help him out and try and find him a shell.
Yeah.
Because I have buddies that part out Mustangs. Like the current cars, I think I got the shell for $100.
Yeah.
Granted, it was a shell. Like, it had doors. That was it.
Yeah, literally.
Those pics of it, like, it is like... Is that a car?
So, Mustangs, Harlan was saying he hates them as far as, like, having to do a lot of work to them. Is that true as far as the fact of, like, swapping Cobra rear ends in for drifting and, like...
See, this is a tough topic because, there's... Not everybody, but there's a large distaste for Mustangs from the drift crowd. I don't know why. Mm. I think it's just because like drifting started as a JDM domestic like thing, and I mean it's still a car at the end of the day. People get all bent out of shape. Oh, this is better than that. Versus like at the end of the day, like you can pretty much make any car drift like any other car. Yeah. You can swap suspension. You can make stuff work. Granted, some cars are inherently just going to be better, right? Like E46s are really good, especially as a budget option for like pro cars. Mm-hmm. Like you can't beat it. You can make grip with a solid rear axle. People act like you can't, like it's impossible. But like Denofa's Fox body makes a ton of grip. It just does it differently, and it'll never be full on the same way an IRS makes grip throughout the whole run. But like people act like it's unusable, and you can dial in anti-squat and like for instance, Denofa's Fox runs baseline drag suspension, and a baseline suspension outlaw drag suspension in it, and you can watch it. There's a clip. If you go to the LZ Invitational where Denofa wins. In the last run, they show them taking off from the line. And you just watch the wheel well gap when he takes off from a dead stop. It literally, the back end raises like 1.5 inches. Like dynamically, just like that on a whim. Yeah. Right? And what that's doing is that's actually the way the roll center points work. You're creating leverage in the chassis to push the rear end up. And because you're pushing the rear end up, you're also pushing down on the axle equal and opposite force. Like I was talking about earlier, it's pushing the axle down, making grip. Granted, it kind of falls off a little bit, but like it's more than usable. I think it's more than competitive for like a grassroots.
Did you put a Cobra rear end in yours?
I did.
Okay.
So I was going down the route of making like doing the baseline like that with the solid rear 8.8, and that's when. I literally put lower control arm brackets in to add more anti-squat on it the weekend I was going to go drive it when I blew the 2-valve up, which is right after the whole door accident happened. And I kind of got to a point where I'm like, do I want to put this much money into a car that's this beat up to just even replace the 2-valve that was in it? And I had just bought the $100 shell from my buddy Andrew Sheardon, who runs Mustang Lifestyle. And, I do a little bit here with him. He's a good friend. He helps me out with a bunch of stuff. He's actually the one who helped me with my Coyote swap and like getting things set, and I go and help him with drift stuff and fabrication stuff. And I just got the shell, and I was like, well, I got this good shell, and if I got to pull an engine and stuff anyways, I might as well swap it all over here. And that's when I call him he's literally in my phone as bad influence. He's like, well, dude, I'll give you a deal on a Coyote. We just Coyote swap it. And the beauty of it, the Coyote still uses the modular block. So the modular block started in 98 with the 2-valve 4.6 and the 4-valve, and ever since then all the Ford V8s use that modular base design. So it's the same transmission bell housing pattern, it's the same engine mounts. So I reused radiator, trans mounts, transmission, engine mounts, flywheel. The only things I really had to change was fuel system, but that had to change anyways. I had to get swap headers to fit the chassis, which are BBKs that are like $600-700, and then I had to get ECU to control it because Coyotes have variable cam timing. That's what lets me spin it to 8,000 RPM. I could actually go higher if I wanted, but we were like, 8,000's enough.
Yeah.
It puts me at like 85 on the pad, which is like way more than you should be using on the pad, but like I don't ever get it that high, so and I can bring the limiter down if I need to, if I'm notice I'm getting into it.
Talking about, you mentioned E46 being great. Didn't you have an E46 too, or no?
I never drifted. I owned an E46 for like a month, and the thing was a bucket of bolts.
God.
I don't think I ever ended up driving. I think I drove it, broke the drive shaft, and said "fuck this" and sold it.
Yeah.
It was literally just on a whim. I got it for $200. I actually had an E39 for the longest time. Loved that car, 530i. Loved that car. It was so heated steering wheel. I got it. That was literally a revive and drive.
Yeah.
My neighbor across the street goes, "My son has this car. I bought him a 540, so he doesn't drive it anymore. It's been sitting for 4 years, but he'll give you a good deal just to get rid of it." So I get there, and it's literally like you can't see the car behind the weeds. Give it some brake cleaner, give it a battery, fucking some good fuel, starts right up.
True.
Bees fly out of it, goes crazy, and I drove that thing daily for a long time till the coolant expansion tank blew up, which is, a common BMW thing. My stepsister was driving it, and she kept driving it, and I totaled the car out because that was before I was really mechanically savvy. If I knew now what I back then, I just did a head swap and fixed it and kept on going.
Yeah.
But back to what we were talking about making grip. I went to Cobra IRS because I had fully built my 8.8 like suspension wise. So I did 31 spline axles, which are stronger. I had done a welded diff with the better gearing. I had done the lower control arm relocation brackets. So by dropping the relocation, you change the angle to the roll center, bring it backwards, which increases anti-squat, right? So I had just done that. It had UPR chromoly upper and lower control arms on it. Like it was done to the nine. Dual caliper brackets, 95 Taurus calipers, which are a bigger piston diameter, so you get a better pull on the handbrake, even though it's still not that great. And there's a guy by the name of, I think his name is Jerry Woodrow. Nice guy. He has a 2JZ swapped SN95, like the older style, that he had IRS in it because it was a Cobra car. And the wheel bearing went out on him at an event. I was actually at the event that happened. I was like, dude, that sucks. So on and so forth. He hit me up when I posted a picture to Instagram of me moving the axle out of the car I was taking it out of, the wrecked, blown up car. And he's like, hey man, are you selling that? And I was like, I'm not selling it, but I'd be open to trade it for like an IRS or something like that. He goes, well, I mean, I have an IRS, but it needs to be fixed. The value of, I got a really good deal. So like he wanted something he could drop back in and go drive the car and work good from it. And I was like, this was before I was like fully like into the weeds on suspension setup. So I was like, oh, I guess I got to go IRS. So I ended up straight trading him my built solder axle that was maybe worth $800-900 for his blown, the diff was all right, but it needed a wheel bearing Cobra IRS. Straight trade. Granted, with those, you have to kind of do everything to them all at once because otherwise you get wheel hop issues. So I probably dropped another like $1,500 to $2,000 on. Nobody makes parts for them. There's like one company, their website's like looks like it's from 2002. Like if you don't check out fast enough, the cart times out and resets without like any notification. It's bad.
Yeah.
What I ended up doing is I got in touch with Scott Umbrell from Drift American, and he actually had an account with them, and I was able to just tell him all of what I needed, and he was able to order it directly for me because their website was so bad. Really nice guy. It's funny. A buddy at Leighton, one of the first guys I ever tandem with, had another silver New Edge, was just so happened to be driving through there and met up with Scott to say hi. And Scott introduced him to his sister, and now they're in a relationship, and he moved up there. So now I've chatted with Scott. I want to put some stuff on his store because I make Cobra IRS parts. But I want to do another solder axle car. Yeah. I want to do something that makes some grip and be like, hey, look, and like Alec Honendale just posted a clip of him shredding a New Edge with solder axle at Mid Pond, like just ripping. Like,
so you think that'll be our next build? It's like something solder axle? Probably,
but I got so many things going on. Yeah. I just bought a 99 Cobra shell. That's going to be a turbo street car. Cool. That's cool. That's going to be on my YouTube channel, hopefully, if I ever get around to posting again. But back to the whole Harlem thing. Love Harlem. He's so grifting with that. I can't even take him seriously because he wants to talk about all this, but like, meanwhile, E46, you drive it wrong, the whole subframe falls out of it, all right? Like, let's not act like they don't take any work either, all right? Yeah. I mean, you have, and I've done it multiple times, you have to drop the subframe and weld the subframe back together because it just rips out of the car otherwise, and you got to do this and that. And by the way, sure, I think I think people try to say E46 is the only good, like, a lot of BMW friends of mine that are like, E46 or E36 or you're not doing right. And I'm like, okay, guys, there's pros and cons here. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, suspension setup wise and all that, sure, the E46 is kind of out ahead. But you got to do subframe reinforcements. And they only make 200 horsepower on a good day. And, like, whereas, sure, the Mustang doesn't have quite as good suspension, but you got 260 and you got a solid rear axle that's solid. Like, you don't have to worry about it breaking. Granted, you can't dial the suspension. Like, there's other good cars to learn the drift in.
Yeah.
And there's other good cars, period. The biggest thing for me with the IRS is I wanted to eventually compete, and it's still the goal. That car, I kind of took a hiatus from drifting for like a year, just because I didn't want to. It was just kind of one of the things where I let projects snowball. So I kind of took that show from the ground up after I learned and made all the mistakes on the orange car, fabricating, cage-wise, so on and so forth. That's where I learned, like, no offense, don't buy an Enjuku cage. Don't buy a Rhodes race cars cage. They're garbage.
I've been told.
They are. And you can clip this.
I sit in one Enjuku cage, and it was right on my head.
You can clip this. I will say this, all right? Do not buy an Enjuku cage. Do not buy a Rhodes race car cage. If it's like a $500 cage, don't buy it. It's garbage. Like, I promise you, it's not going to fit like you want it. It's going to fit like shit. You're not going to fit in it right, and you're just going to have a bad time. I got one buddy that I bet you know him. He actually put his logo on one of his cars. Really nice guy. He bought a S13 to make a drift car, and I literally did a cat hump delete and redid his seat brackets because he bought it sight unseen with a cage, thinking, well, because he went to Japan to buy one. That deal ended up falling through, so he just bought one on his flight back, and thinking it had a good cage in it, and that Enjuku cage is like that far off, like. Your cage is like, it's up against, I don't know if you saw it, it's like up against the roof skin.
You can't put your fingers
No, you can't. Like you can't even get paint up there.
I've been thinking.
You just kind of spray it there and hope for the best. Like, that's kind of how you have to do. Literally, like, I can put my whole fist through. Like, it's so bad. He hits his head. Even I would hit my head. Like, I did a cat hump, and I did my best to put that seat on the floor. And even then, like, you can go kunk. Real easy, go kunk. And you have to put foam there, and it's just, don't waste your money.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of to the point where people keep hitting me up about doing it. I'm like, I just want to kind of go, I don't do those cages, sorry. Like, they take so much time, so much extra effort, because you have to notch them, and their bends aren't precise. So, like, you'll have the main hoop, here's your down leg here. Like, so the main hoop goes up, over, and down. Here's your two down legs. Instead of them being on the same plane, they'll be like that. Or like that. And you got to, like, try and bend them back. Yeah. And the door bars never fit good. And it's not. You're better off just driving without a cage and saving up for longer to buy a cage kit. Like you know how I told you, like,
for a year I've been wanting this cage.
I told you, it's cage kits makes it so easy. Like, I can bend tube and stuff. I got to get another bender. I'm not super skilled at it, but, like, even then, like, what I'd charge to bend the cage and from scratch, it would be a lot more than what it ends up costing you for doing this. Because, like, it costs you right around $3,000, let's say, right, between everything.
Not even, but yeah.
But that's highballing it. Like, you're probably a little shorter than that. Yeah. Right? I mean, you're not getting a $3,000 cage that fits that nicely. That's that, like, with the reinforcements and all that. Like, a custom shop's going to charge you $5,000, $6,000 probably for that. Yeah. Some shops may not, but some shops that are going to charge you less is not going to be that tight fitting as that cage is. I mean, those cages, I literally sometimes have to hammer bars into place because it's pressing against the chassis. Yeah. The biggest thing, I kind of lost my train of thought again. Just, I cannot stress this enough. Don't buy it.
Don't get an Enjuku.
Don't. It's so bad.
And as much as I love Enjuku, that's like one thing.
It's one of those things where, like, it's like they serve a purpose. Like, if it's a beater missile, okay, maybe, all right? But you have to notch them, and the Enjuku cages aren't bad as the Rhodes ones, but they're not great. They're just kind of one size fit all, and they just kind of scale it to fit in the car and call it a day. Yeah. And it's just, man, you're not, if it's a car you like and a car you're going to use, just spend the extra money. Yeah. Or wait. Just don't buy it. Like, just be okay with doubles, tandems. It's just, and, like, that's one of the things I learned with the orange car. Like I was saying, I learned, like, don't do that. Hey, don't do your boxes this way. Hey, you want to do this differently. So I kind of took the opportunities, like if I'm going to swap to this chassis, let me redo this from scratch, how I think it should be done. So this is like my second real full build of a car from scratch. And I learned things on this one that there's not as much this time, but there are some things I would go back and do slightly differently. Like, for instance, I bought a Maximum Motorsports K-member. Amazing K-member, great for road racing, move suspension points 3/4 of an inch forward. No longer legal, right? So that's one of the big things in FD and all comp series. Granted, they don't always check.
Yeah.
All right, I know people that have run those K-members in comps and never got caught. And I was going to do the same, but I just, at this point now, I'm like, okay, I'll just fix it.
Yeah.
But it moves the suspension point forward, which you're not allowed. Big no-no. You're not allowed to move suspension points. The only tubular K-member on Mustangs that are approved, because they use a K-member style that goes up to the chassis rails, and the stock one's stamped steel, so it's got this big flat plate from the stamp that you can't work around. The only one approved is the QA1 K-member, which is not great. They're really meant for drag racing, and the ear tabs where the control arms mount rip off. So you kind of got to weld them back in place. Adam, the Pro Spec car, there's a Pro Spec New Edge, and he had the same issue. He just posted, I was like, I guess after a season, these ear tabs are ripping off. I had to reinforce them. I was like, yep, I'm going to do that. Can't. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, you learn through it.
But you learn. Yeah. But, like, I did, like, there's stuff I did on this car. I'm glad I did. Like, for instance, I ditched power. I did the Coyote swap, right? Terminator X. I probably wouldn't go with the Terminator X again. It's good, but I'm miffed with Holly on it because I've had issues and they lock some things down that just kind of feels predatory. I'd probably go Power by the Hour swap pack, but like I did a full cage, I did full sub chassis summary, I did the IRS, fully built the IRS. I designed custom dual caliper brackets that actually use a Wheelwood D154 caliper, which is like a G body front caliper. And it just feels so much better on the hydro. The stock Mustang calipers and the 95 Taurus, slightly bigger ones, they work. But like you got to get some heat in them, and if you don't have heat in them, I wanted the plastic barrier when I was learning with the hydro because like I went to grab it and it just didn't lock up. Now it's just like a 2-inch pull and it locks. It's butter.
Yeah.
One day when we're at the track, I'll let you drive my car. Of course, I'd like to let the homies drive the car
because
get a feel for it, and it's just one of those things where I learned so much, and like I wouldn't have done that K-member.
Yeah.
And then one of the biggest things I've come on to is like electric power steering. Got to do electric power steering right. Some pumps do not flow enough. Some pumps can't handle the load. The best pump that I know of is the one I run. It's the Mini Cooper, like 08 Mini Cooper electric power steering pump. It's like that big. It's a big chunker. I learned about it from Taylor Ray when he did it on his Corvette. The problem I was having is the Ford 2-valve modular power steering pump that was on the 2 valves and the 3 valves, because when they went Coyote, they went electric power assist rack, which the problem with those is the motor's in the rack. It's like an electric motor, and the way the sensor suite works, it doesn't feel right drifting, not like a hydraulic assist. It feels like sometimes it feels slow. So a lot of people run S197 racks, like the pre-Coyote, because that's when they switched. The problem comes in that the modular 2-valve pumps suck. They suck from factory. They'll just randomly die from factory. The stock cooler is literally just a tube with no fins, right? Just a tube that goes in front of the radiator back. All right, like it doesn't cool anything, so the pump gets hot and nukes itself. And then for the RPMs stay too high for too long, it nukes itself. So like on the 2-valve, I put a big transmission cooler in front of it and hooked the transmission cooler to power steering, and I stopped killing pumps. Well, I went to the Coyote not seeing higher RPMs. I'm killing pumps again. I've warrantied like 12 electric hydraulic power steering pumps.
Wow.
I've lifetime warranty.
Yeah.
I used to work at AutoZone. It was like my first job, and I know how to abuse their warranty system. Like, it's a lifetime warranty. So I just come in, another pump died.
Yeah.
And those reman pumps are cheap, and sometimes they just die because they're a reman. It's really luck of the draw. But I was like, I'm tired of killing pumps. And the last time that fully pushed me over the edge was when I got to drive the oval. And you can see me. I have power steering. I flick it in, and the oval is ethereal because you're literally, especially if you're not like super high horsepower, you're on the full throttle on the gas, and you're on the foot brake, trying to keep the car like where you want it. Like so, like you're on off, and like at points you are holding the brake and the gas at the same time while going 30, 40 mile an hour on the bank. It's such a wild feeling, especially from the driver's perspective. That like it just hooks me, man. I can't wait to tandem on it more. I initiate and like I feel halfway through the initiation, the power steering was just like, nope. Too much for the pump. Too much lock to lock. Too much leverage. Pump just died instantly. And so I had muscled it through the transition. Luckily, the car has enough self-steer and enough caster in it, where it self-steers fairly decently, especially at lock. But it would want to kind of get stuck at lock because it does flop. I have a little bit too much caster in it. And so I'm muscling. I was just like, this would be so much better if I had power. So to hit up Andrew Grindle had an extra power Mini Cooper pump he was going to use for something, but he decided not to, so he sold it to me. Kind of got it all figured out. They're really cool because all the electronics are on board. So you just give it 12 volts, and then you give it the main fused like 60 amps, 12 volt, right, on the big 6-gauge wire. Or 8-gauge, I think it uses. And then there's 3 real small 22-gauge wire. One's a CAN signal just for like, hey, electric power steering pump fault, to turn your check engine light on. You don't need that. And then there's 2 more. There's one that's like a startup wire that just needs to see 12 volts for a moment to know when you start the car that, or sorry, more than 12 volts, like 14 volts, like your alternator spreads, to start the pump. No, I have that backwards. There's one that needs to see, you give 12 volts just like when you start the car, like an accessory on, right? And then there's one that needs to see above 12 volts, or above 12 volts for a moment to know that the alternator is working. That way, like, if the alternator is not working, you turn the car on, it'll turn the power steering.
Right.
Safety features. You don't want to lose power steering on the highway. So you just tie those two together, and I just use a 12-volt switch to them. And it's all it's got all the circuitry on board itself. So if it gets above, I have got a whole write-up on this I have shared. And it's like 6 paragraphs. And it's like if it gets above like 200 something degrees temperature-wise, it reduces power. Or like if it sees a shock load, it idles at 80%, but if you start to turn it sees a pressure drop, it jumps up to 100% and stays there and shuts itself off and does all the safety precautions and pressure bypasses. It's really cool. And I kid you not, I got to talk to Taylor early at Black Friday before I really got to use it, and he was like, dude, you're going to like it. Like I keep recommending it. I don't know why more people don't use this pump. Because everybody uses the Volvo pump, but I see time and time again where the Volvo pump, one by itself, can't keep up. And so, like, on the RTR cars, I got a picture of it when they ran the Volvo pumps. They had two parallel feeding into the same line. And then now they use Opel Zafira pumps, but they're 2 in line. Taylor Ray's vet uses the 1 electric mini pump. And he's like, dude, you're going to like it. I don't know why more people use that. Try to recommend it. And so I went out there. Power steering in that car has never felt that good. It felt just like Sim, where, like, you get feedback. It's got a little weight to it, but it's not like you have to muscle it to move it. It's still like you can one-hand it if you want. At angle, like mid-drift. Like it was the crazy. So it really let me kind of just put the car where I want it because I didn't have to worry about fighting the wheel at all. Whereas power steering before, like, there was a little weight to it. Like it was power assist. Like it was definitely like boosted, but like it wasn't the greatest thing. I was mind blown. I was like, I'd never go back.
I installed a Volvo pump in the S13 I had because it had all the power steering was removed. And the pumps for the KA for the 240 were like ridiculous. So I ended up doing a Volvo pump, and it wasn't there.
It couldn't.
It lacked, and I changed the alternator as well. I upgraded the alternator because I thought that might be the problem. And yeah, it wasn't as responsive. Like, you would turn and then the car would turn. Like,
so my question for you is, did you have, so those use PWM signal. So when you just power them 12 volts by themselves, they're in like a limp mode. Just like when you turn the car on an accident, it's limp. It'll give you some assist, but it's not perfect. You can actually, and Denofa did this on his Fox, he mentioned in a video, like, he just put a resistor across the 2 pins to pin it at 100% all the time. Did you do that by chance?
No.
So you need to give them, and there's a guy that actually sells a controller that you just plug into it. That's a little PWM knob, and you just turn it up based on how much percentage you want the pump at. But even then, I still hear about the pumps not being able to keep up, like you're saying. And it's that same feeling, like the assist really isn't there. And especially in a drift car where you take leverage away from the rack, so the pump has to work harder. and now you're going over a longer throw, and you want to go quicker across that. You're just asking a lot. There's few pumps that can really do it.
Yeah.
I know a lot of the LS guys use like racing. Like I forget the name. You probably know them, Logan. The name of the company that makes the really expensive power steering pumps for LSs.
I know.
It's like Turn 1 pumps or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
But they work really well, but they're $400 or $500 pump alone. Whereas I think I'm like $400 total and everything. That's reservoir. I'm all AN line now, so I don't have to worry about crush washers or nylocks or anything like that. Because that's the other pain in the ass is when I had to change each pump, I had to have nylon washers on me because the nylon washer used the fitting. That's just an AN line.
Yeah.
The trick with that is I always thought like PTFE AN line was for like resistance to E85, but most AN lines, like quality AN lines that are rubber without PTFE, are rated for E85. Like they won't degrade in the 85. Like I guess PTFE wouldn't do less. The real thing the PTFE lines are for is high pressure. So like the one section you have to use it, you have to go when you go from the pump to the rack before the bypass in the rack. You have to use PTFE AN because on other Andrew Mustang Lifestyle, the one I got the shell from, on his Fox body, he ran regular AM line and it worked for a little bit, and then it blew out mid track and just sprayed everybody in the car with like that car is a rattle trap. It's a good car. It's just like it's got some holes in the firewall that haven't been plugged yet, and like so it just coated me in hot power steering fluid through the firewall, just because like the line game. I was like, oh well, there's your problem. So I helped him get that sorted out, and he's taught me so much as well. It's one of those back and forth relationships. Like inline, and he's like, oh yeah, well this tuning wise, like that makes sense. I can't recommend that Mini Cooper Paris. Like it's such a game changer. And then I'm doing a lot to the car now that that's set up and fixed. Like now the electric power, like that was like my last major issue. That was like a functionality. Like the car doesn't function without this. So now I'm getting bougie. I just bought a 1,400-pound front sway bar. So like I had the suspension at Black Friday. I did horrible in the comp. The car was loose during the day, but it was like right where I liked it. I liked the car a little looser. When the track got cold, it lost all that grip, and I did not make the changes to keep up with it. Like I dropped tire pressure and I did out one lap. I was on ice skates and went, I'm gonna die. I got my own head and like it was like one of my first real comp experiences, so I'm not too surprised. But I got my own head and kind of like shut down instead of like going, okay, I need to make these changes. I went back and the next morning I toe played the car. I didn't have any toe in the car, which was a stupid rookie mistake. Tire pressures were a little too low. I should have softened the rear coilovers more. Granted, I ended up going full soft, which is bad, and I'll tell you about the why in a second. But I went full soft in the rear, and so now the car could really lean on the tire. In the morning, afterwards, and went, oh, that made a massive difference. So now I'm towing the car in. I'm fixing my alignment issues in the rear because the stock Cobra IRS arms don't have enough positive camber adjustment to, even with like the slight modification kits that they sell, to get neutral tire wear. Not right. I still wear the inners like Camber Boy.
Interesting.
So I'm actually designing custom upper control arms because it's also hard to get Cobra IRS upper control arms. So I'm designing new ones that are gonna be billet with Heim joints and such, so you don't have to use bushings. Getting that redialed in, adding anti-squat. I'm talking to some people about adjusting where the toe arms attach, like their mounting point, to gain more dynamic toe under compression, because that's where solid rear axle and IRS and like drag racing and drifting differ. Drag racing, you want a bunch of anti-squat because you don't gain a whole lot from toe in going straight, right? It's only in drift where toe in helps you push forward, because it just has to do with the angle of the tire relative to your direction of travel. Drag racing, you want a ton of anti-squat, so that's where you see a lot of solid rear axle guys like pushing up. Drag racing, a lot of the best pro cars you see squat. They squat like crazy. The reason they squat is because as it squats, that dynamic toe toes the rear of the car in. That more toe adds more grip. And just like I was saying earlier with Andrew, where he hits that bang, it toes in. That car was making so much grip, it was breaking transaxles when it would toed in. Just because of how the shock of how much grip it was making under the compression. So I'm doing that. And then up front, and this is where something I've learned recently. Like, I kind of knew it, but like I didn't understand it. And now I've kind of come full circle. Like, you can make more rear grip by adding a front sway bar, right? Like adding a front sway bar doesn't just like loosen the car up side by wise. So like in my car, so I have the cage, I have subframe connectors, it's super rigid. So at Black Friday, the next morning when I kind of like regroup myself and what should I have done, I loosen the rears up, tighten the front up, and there's a clip picture of me driving in front of Grindle, and like you can almost see daylight between my front left tire. Like we're in the last corner going towards the wall. You can almost see daylight underneath my front corner tire because I had softened the rear suspension too much. So it was all leaning on that back one tire, and because the chassis is so riveted, is now it's picking the other front side up. I don't run a front sway bar, so that's why I was able to do that. So now I'm leaning all. Now you're leaning all on this back right tire in this case. Yeah, no, back right in this case. Depends on the direction, whether it's back right or back left. You're leaning all of it on that one. You're not taking as much advantage of the other tire. So to make more grip in that situation, you run a bigger front bar, and this is part of why Denofo always says run a big front bar when you can. So by putting a front bar, now you're using this tire being on the ground to hold this corner down. Anchor. All right. So the sway bar connects to two front tires. So because this one's on the ground, as this one tries to pick up, it's now fighting against the sway bar. Well, because it's fighting against the sway bar, instead of picking the front corner up, it kind of keeps it down to enough to where now you're redistributing some of the grip from here and you're adding it over here. So now you're more evenly distributing the grip. So you're actually going to make more overall, because if you lean on one tire too much, you actually lose some, right? Because there's only so much tire the grip the tire is going to make. So by splitting out between the two, you're making more grip overall. Sure. And that's something I didn't fully grasp until recently. Yeah. So now I have a big...
That's a good explanation.
1 3/4 front sway bar that just got delivered that's going on the front of the car, along with the QA1K member. And I'm replacing a steering shaft because I developed some play in the one I had before. And I'm just trying to get the car good enough to be competitive. Because like drivetrain-wise, other than the transmission, which is... It's the same T45 that's only good for like 300-400 horsepower that I started drifting on. The first and second synchros are finally... The third and fourth synchros have been not... Second to third, I should say, has not been happy for a long time. Yeah. It sounds faceplated going in. Like but I mainly drive in second. But now, as of Black Friday, the first and second starting to sound a little faceplatey. Yeah. So I think I'm going to grab a TKX for that and just cut it. Luckily, it bolts right in. True. But I'm trying to get the car competitive enough to where I feel confident to compete more. Yeah. And I want to try and hit like... I'd like to hit a round of clutch kickers, even though I'll be fish out of water there. Just desperate to keep up, but it'll be fun. Yeah. And then I want to hit like Pro-Am OSW, maybe some grassroots comps and stuff. Maybe hit E-Town or Summit Point or whatever. I know I'm going to Mid-Pond Spring Break Bash with the homies. Yeah. That's going to be fun. That's the first time driving out of state. That would be a blast.
Yeah, I still haven't traveled out of state to drive, but...
You hear the stories, and I'm just like, I'm so tired of skid pads. Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, Leadfoot City's cool. I'm happy there's another track that's not OSW. Not to say OSW's bad, but
no, for sure.
There's room to be for things left to be desired with OSW. Yeah. And hopefully Leadfoot does what they say and they actually make an extension like road course eventually. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah. Or PBIR comes back, that would be cool. Although there's a lot of mixed news around that. One person, I think the mayor Leadfoot or whatever his name is, saying like he went down there and looked at the place to potentially buy it, but they were like, they don't want this to be a racetrack. The owners don't want it to be a racetrack. The city doesn't want it to be a racetrack, and they already rezoned it to industrial. But then the SGMP guys make it seem like there's a chance, but it's going to be an uphill battle. So that's so complicated.
Yeah. Yeah, because then, with the city, you have people that want to build homes close there.
Yeah, the whole Cletus situation. That blows my mind that they said, well, put a clause in it. Like, clause is going to mean a whole lot.
Yeah, they were talking about building a wall for, like, behind the home. Like, that's not going to help.
I mean, it's well documented. I really hope. I hope it never comes to people trying to kick Cletus out of that place. This place is awesome. Sure. But if they do, he's got the lawyers, hopefully, to really make it like, nah, you signed up for this.
Yeah,
like,
it's true. Yeah.
I mean, I love it. Like, you're right next to the Freedom Factory. You're right next to Bradenton. Like, one of the best drag strips in Florida.
Yeah, it's true. Like, I don't know why you would move somewhere if that stuff bothers you. Like, I don't know. Whatever.
Well, I think they go on a Tuesday when nothing's happening. Like, oh, it was perfect. And then they hear the car. They see the clause. Like, that wasn't that loud. It seemed fine to me. And then next thing you know, it's Saturday at 2 in the afternoon and you're at Top Fuel a mile away going down the track.
You're right.
Those things will shatter your eardrums, man. I saw one once. it's those cars are insane.
Yeah.
Like just the sheer you have to wear a mask if you're in the car starting in the pits because the pure not methane nitro, what is it, meth injection, right? It's straight meth.
For what?
Top fuel.
Oh no, it's alcohol or nitro.
Yeah, that's what it is. Nitromethane. That's not methane. It's nitromethane. So that nitromethane will make your eyes burn and water, and it's insane.
Shit.
It's just
felt that.
thinking about it blows my mind.
Wild. Well, is there anything else you want to touch on or go over before we close this out?
Not really, man.
Yeah,
I
dude.
enjoy you
Been
having me
an
over.
hour, dude.
Sorry I yap so much.
No, dude, that's sick, man. Yeah, you were like, yeah, he's good. It's been great having you. Drop a thumbs up, leave a comment below. We will catch you next time, fam.
See ya.
Peace.